This is our marketing approved slide first. I've got to have this sort of thing here. I'm the S Vanderwater, so I'm Stu. Shout out to Steve, the S Mundell there, who put a lot of this content together for me. But he also pulled out and left me to actually present it. So I've actually got mixed feelings about Steve at the moment, so a bit of a touchy subject. Another shout out to Copilot. I know that Copilot's not the most popular of our AIs, but not for writing this stuff. That was Steve, but he drew all my pictures for me. So I did ask Copilot to draw a picture of itself as a bit of a hero. I don't know. I think Copilot really went for it. A bit presumptuous, but for me, really was the hero of this presentation. So mining is a system of ripples. Every decision we make creates a knock-on effect across the planning, the operations, compliance, and our costs. Mines are a complex system of interdependent functions. Improving one part without considering the whole can backfire. Traditional metrics really miss the bigger picture, and true productivity is also about the speed and the quality of decisions enabled by data. Trusted data really does drive decisions, and decisions drive productivity. So in the title, we talked about the law of unintended consequences. So what is that? Well, the law of unintended consequences is the idea that actions often have unforeseen and unplanned outcomes, which can actually be positive or negative. These consequences arise because complex systems are interconnected and difficult to predict, meaning that any intervention intended for one purpose can actually trigger a chain of events that are not immediately apparent. I think we can all agree, and as stated earlier, that mining is a complex system of interdependent functions. The actions can have unintended consequences and can ripple throughout your organisation. So now thinking about the ripples and consequences of our data practices, let's redefine productivity. So even if it's just for the next 20 minutes, let's redefine productivity as decisions per hour. So what would we need to have in place to excel in that metric, enabled by the availability of trusted data? I think we actually heard a really good presentation just then around when the technology comes together with collaboration, with what's going to happen on the ground, to be able to really excel in trusting the data to make decisions, because we're looking at what the outcome might be. I was really impressed with how that was changed, and the fact that there was that previous example that we had all this data, but we didn't know what the outcome was actually looking for. And so defining it this way means that we're really trying to look at how we can utilise our data to get productivity throughout our operations. Poor productivity in mining isn't just about trucks, shovels and drills. It's also about time lost to poor data quality, duplication and inefficiency. It's data that drives and informs decisions, and decisions help drive productivity in mining. You can't afford to think of one without the other, and I think that previous presentation really highlighted that. It's where that physical meets the digital, that convergence of the physical and digital experiences. So what does good look like in this area? It's really personified by operational efficiency, so faster data-driven decisions in exploration, drilling, lab results and site operations. Data utilisation, turning complex geological, environmental and drilling data into actionable insights, and an asset which gives you a true advantage. So you'd say in that previous example where they had all this data, but they really didn't know what the outcomes they were looking for, really wasn't giving them a true advantage. And thinking about compliance and risk reduction, ensuring regulatory and environmental reporting is accurate, timely and defensible. What typifies good results is that it's not just about individual tasks that's improved, but the organisation's capabilities are improved across the board, both sides of that task and in concert with the rest of the business. And importantly, super importantly, it happens at scale. But why does this matter? So what? At the end of the day, we should always come down to so what? It matters because there is so much money and time invested in our data management platforms and our attempts to drive productivity and efficiency. This talk is really looking into giving you ways to identify the red flags that can exist in your organisations that most likely indicate you're going to have some bad ripples going on, and hopefully give you some ways to turn them around into good ripples, that you can be more aware of your ability to identify and improve decisions per hour, and to maximise the investment you are making in your people, your processes and your technology. To achieve these good results, organisations have to done it well, think about it as a system, as a whole, rather than individual processes. And I'll keep going back to the previous presentation that really highlighted how you go along that transformation, think about it as that holistic system and the sort of things you can achieve. I also go back to that previous presentation of I knew if I could just do a video, probably would have done that too. Very smart. They can see across functions and departments. They often start by thinking that the decisions they want to make, the reports they need to produce, the analysis they need to perform, then they work backwards from there. The key here to embedding technology is the data, or lack thereof, has a ripple effect throughout the organisation. Good ripples rely on a clean and clear passage through the organisation in order to be effective and, really important, predictable. So what red flags can we look out for if you're not thinking of the system as a whole? It's often seen in the results. So if you have poor geological data, poor models, inaccurate mine plan, wasted drilling, poor ore control, incorrect blending. If we have mistakes in the ore body knowledge, dilution, rehandling, costly redesigns, and poor drilling management, poor performance control, delays in lab results, delays in operations, cost overruns, poor environmental data, poor compliance control, stoppages, fines, reputational risk, and delays. What you'll notice is data silos and data walls, not sharing data in a timely manner, or just lobbing it over the wall with no context or warning. It represents itself as a real lack of orchestration in the movement of data. People. We did talk before about, in the previous presentation, that people are very critical to this, both in a positive aspect and in a negative aspect. So the red flags to look out for here is that where a lot of people are involved in the process, there's a lot of manual intervention, manual handling. Rules are being applied and judgment calls are being made because the path of the data from start to end is not that well known, and everyone will probably experience this. It relies on some really good people doing a really good job. Then, of course, someone goes on leave. Someone leaves the organisation, someone's not on shift, and all hell breaks loose. Email workflow hell. All this wonderful data and spits out and gets someone emailed who does stuff and emails it to somebody else who is on leave or in another time zone, again off shift. And then those delays actually become then part of the process and the accepted throughput of this. Shouldn't be there, except for the fact, again, we're relying on an implicit set of rules and protocols that are in people's heads. So what do you do to turn it around and create good ripples for improving the data and reduce decision lag? Well, it all depends. Not everyone is at the same point on the journey to productivity, nor does everyone have the same aims, so it's difficult to say just do this. Of course, we also have finite resources, which we'd all agree, and budgets to implement everything. So take stock and have an honest assessment of where you're at. Look for those red flags. Also give yourself a break and realise that you can't fix everything at once. Also define where you want to go and in what time frame, but be realistic. Look to pilot and stage building towards an end goal to ensure that you don't overinvest. That if something doesn't meet expectations, you can pivot. Always have a plan B. Define what looks good, what metrics you want to achieve, the minimum acceptable tolerances. Define what quality standards will underpin your operations. And look for bottlenecks in areas that with little investment can provide maximum benefit. It's amazing how many things come to a halt because of a single choke point, or where decision points or handoffs are not well defined. Don't target something which sort of works already, and that with some cool AI, we can only achieve a like-for-like replacement. It's easy to be seduced by those low-hanging fruit where an obvious solution exists. but does it really provide that bang for buck? We all have finite resources again, and you want to deploy them wisely. It's funny, across the organisation, the overall strength of your data management system will be determined actually by your lowest common denominator. You might have really pockets of excellence all over the place, but you can be let down by areas which haven't had the time or investment, so target them too. Target those things which are broken and have caused bad ripples in the past so they don't happen again. Document and acknowledge your mistakes and use data to quantify them. Learning from your mistakes is really important. I heard something recently which I love, which I think is an excellent mindset when it comes to mistakes. It's, I only plan on making new mistakes. And when an organisation knows where it wants to go, it embeds platforms aligned with their vision rather than point solutions. We've worked with someone who now no longer waits overnight to make decisions from drill logs. They now make them in minutes. Previously, they were updating spreadsheets while on a drill rig. They'd get all those logs digitised, email them to the boss that night, who would email them back the next morning with the drill cross-section. By implementing a platform to align process with the outcomes and efficiency they actually desired, so setting benchmarks as well, they transformed this to being able to export data straight away and start plotting within 5 minutes. Their exact quote was, "It was a game changer." Productivity gains come from embedding technology to support end-to-end processes and not using tools in isolation. Again, that theme that's come through from the first presentation. Has anyone ever felt like this? Gee, those results look good, like surprisingly good. I'm not actually sure how that happened, but I'm not going to question it. It's fantastic. But as we know, the devil is always in the detail. Good old Excel. It works until it doesn't. The ultimate point solution. It is such a temptation. It's a big red flag seeing Excel involved in a reporting process in a processing chain, to calculate figures that you rely on to make really important decisions and to send to other departments. We worked with someone who provided us a spreadsheet as a source system to be loaded into one of our systems. In looking through this data, we discovered something pretty alarming. There was a column which from about 3 months ago was now hard-coded instead of the formula that it was meant to be. So for the last 3 months, the figures had not changed, no one had picked it up, and as luck would have it, because this actually has to be reported to the regulatory bodies, it hadn't left the business yet. You can imagine the risk and the potential ramifications of not picking this up. They used Excel and it worked until it didn't. Also, look for the black boxes in the organisation. Getting data from something that lacks transparency, that came from some whiz-bang solution where some guy in engineering built it, it's been around for eternity, apparently works, so we just don't question it. And keep an eye out for string and sticky tape, or the Franken systems. Systems and solutions which evolved over time that have this temporary nature to them that suddenly stay around and become production. We had a customer who had a temporary solution built to open water valves on site. That doesn't sound dangerous at all, does it? As a proof of concept, that became a long-running production solution. Until someone clicked on the open valve button in a system test as a broader release, not realising it was actually hooked up to production. Again, through sheer luck, someone happened to be on site to stop the valve. So heading back to what have we measured production as decision throughput, tonnes per hour is very much looking backwards metric, and decisions per hour allows us actually to move forward with that, which gives us that agility and adaptability. It actually allows us to make the tonnes per hour more predictable and a good ripple which doesn't come as a surprise. The sort of productivity mindset looks like trusted geological data, faster drill adjustments, embedding drilling data, instant drill operation corrections, environmental data, real-time compliance decisions. Measuring decisions per hour highlights the true role of productivity, data and productivity, and we can see the ripple effect when done right and methodically. The third is about rationalise and automate. Last year we presented a slide showing all of the dimensions of water data management, and there was so much there. There is so much going on in all the aspects of our monitoring. But you need to reduce the moving parts, the manual handling as much as possible, and how you assess data. You also need to focus on rationalising the number of data sources and providers you have. Some red flags here. Vendors telling you this is the only format I can provide, or not giving you access in a timely manner or to the degree you need. It's your data. It's madness. Okay, apologies to anyone who's Dave here, but one big red flag is relying on Dave. We all know the Dave. Dave, who knows a lot about a lot, has been there for a long time, who holds a lot of stuff, and you couldn't possibly replace Dave because of all the things they do. Sorry, Dave, but you are a red flag. And lastly, noise and wrangling. I really liked the example earlier of all those alerts for a collision detection. It's a lot of noise, and as one of our colleagues, Mark, would say, if you've got so many alerts, you've got no alerts. Even when getting data submitted electronically, the vendor says, oh, sorry, we can't approve the 4,000 files that we send you each day. Or, actually, we have to provide those 13 other supplementary rows in that data file. All you need to do is go in there, do a search and replace, and fix it up, and it's going to be sort of the format you want. But all good, you'll be fine. Again, it's complete and utter madness. We often find this is an easy, effective place to start when you're looking at your data ripples and limit your unintended consequences. Start by asking, do we even need to do this? You'll be amazed how many times that you actually don't need to be doing these things which have been ongoing and no one really questions. So question everything. Consolidate vendors, standardise and rationalise who is providing the data. Sites and departments will tell you that they are special and they need a certain format. Rarely, when it comes down to it, is this true. In fact, it's highlighting another red flag. Ultimately, remember, it's your data, your rules. You're invested a lot of money with your providers. Don't be afraid to specify what you want, not just to try to force what they force on you. We've had customers who actually write that into their contracts with their data providers, that they must provide it in a certain format. When done well, you can achieve what one of our customers achieved. They had 26 different data providers, stores and formats. They went to one data store, 2 formats, which provided them with enormous benefits across the board. Quicker to process, make decisions, report, detect and rectify issues. So I've talked about 3 things there to look for when we want to try to achieve these good data ripples and limit the unintended consequences. System as a whole, platforms and not point solutions, and rationalise and automate. But I wanted to leave you with 3 other things which really help sort of bring them together, and it's probably a little bit easier to remember, around cognizant, confident and considerate. Cognizant is just being aware of how you and the data you manage fits into the broader picture. That you are part of a broader ecosystem, and we heard that word ecosystem a few times already, where mistakes can amplify, but conversely, good data practices make a big difference. Confident of being sure and fully understanding of how you are managing data, and that you have confidence that it can be used without reservation in your business. And finally, considerate is knowing that there will be upstream and downstream ramifications to your actions and practices. That ripples will be caused, and that you are ensuring that you are a diligent custodian and handing data onto the next step, the next process, the next person. Thank you. That's it.